No worries. Well, hey, firstly, congratulations on the new record.
Thanks, John.
If you could place a theme on this album, would there be one?
I'm not in the sense of a concept record or anything. All the songs are self-contained in their stories, and they're quite different. But they all come from my head, I guess.
Yeah.
Except for the Hank Williams cover. The theme might have been that they all started from what I was wanting to do. It started from being written in a small room late at night with a piano, piano and voice, which is what I did at the start of my career, and then they expanded out from there. I wanted to get back to what I started doing with music, which is not to say that I haven't done that along the way, but I kind of focused on that process a bit. But yeah, they're the songs that were relevant to what I was thinking and going through and seeing, as anybody's record is, I guess.
Sure. Now, funding for this record wasn't done in the traditional form. There was no record company behind you. Some of the money was put up by your fan base even. That must have been a great source of encouragement.
Yeah, the whole thing was kind of interesting in that way, away from a record company, and it makes a lot of sense to me looking at it now. It'll probably take until a year's time before knowing how it works, but in replace of a record company there, I have my management and I have a distribution company and I have Graham Ashton at Footstomp and his staff who are looking after a publicity and assigning, film clips and all of that, and a person doing social media. So it's like handpicking the right people for the right job. And in terms of funding, it was a mix of possible, which was really wonderful to have that support from your fan base, people investing in advance in a record. So there's that. There was some money from the Australia Council as well, and I certainly put in a fair bit myself. But that's probably the most difficult aspect of bypassing the record company model, because the record company would front the money in advance, but for doing that, they would take, you probably get $3 back from a $30 CD in the record company model. So this is, apart from the money that you earn from publishing. But that's so. I'm hoping that this is a better model, and it seems to be the way with the rest of the music industry, that apart from your, Dire Straits Christmas record and your X Factor, record company buys somebody at the age of 18, gives them songs, and manufactures their publicity. That this is perhaps a more common sense model for musicians to approach, and I dare say it might apply in films and books as well.
Was it a liberating experience being able to make a record without the record company hanging over you?
Yes, look, I've been fortunate at record companies that a lot of the people I've worked with there have been quite good, especially the creatives, like people in the A&R people. But I guess this, because I didn't have an A&R person or a producer, all the musicians who came in and played on the record, plus a few of my friends, I allowed into the kind of inner sanctum, if that makes sense. So I was interested in their opinions, and would ask them, what do you think about this bridge, or do these words make sense to you? Or if I play them a song, saying, what's your take on what the song is about? Because I think if you have to explain it, it's perhaps wrong. And that was good. That was really good. So it was like peer-based production, and as well as I think music's is a social activity. I like playing, like touring with a group of people and playing music with a group of people. I like doing it on my own occasionally as well, but I prefer it with others around, and that So there was always a number of people coming in and out through the studio, but also getting their opinions and their people whose opinions I valued was I enjoyed that.
Talk about the overall sound on the record. If you look back and weigh up what your initial plan was for the album sound and how it actually ended up, how closely do they match up?
John, I'm going to have to get you to repeat that question if you can, because I stupidly kicked my cord out and missed the first half of the question.
That's all right. Just talking about the sound of the record in general. If you took what your initial plans were and weigh them up against how it actually turned out, do they match up pretty closely?
It's a bit more layered than what I'd originally intended. I was listening to this record, Mid-Air, by Paul Buchanan, the singer from the Blue Nile. And his record is it's just piano and vocal. And it's a very brave record and it's a very beautiful record. And there was part of me, and this actually gets back to the last question, because there was part of me at the beginning was thinking, given that what I wanted to get back to was playing songs on the piano and singing them, perhaps I did a record like that and toured it like that. It would certainly be it'd certainly be true to the songs. It's certainly an economic way of touring, and I do quite like doing shows like that. It did expand out from there because it sort of layered these textures and instrument parts, and also bringing in backing vocalists. So I guess what I'm saying is that the process differed from what the original idea was, but the songs actually didn't shift that much. It didn't ruin those songs at all. There's still a sense of space in the songs and a fragility in some of them, and then others kind of have that raw emotional power that they were intended to at the beginning.
Your solo records have been well spaced through the years. I mean, 3 years between your first and second, and 5 years between each of the last two. Is that a comfortable time frame for you?
I've tended to do My Friendly Chocolate Cake record in the middle, because I still have a commitment to that band, and then it's a great band to play in. And because of other projects I'm doing with the One Talk label and soundtrack stuff, yes, I don't think I'll wait 5 years for the next one. I wasn't sure after Succumb that I was even going to do another solo record, so this record was a pretty important one for me to do, and it was a bit scary in parts too, but I think I would certainly go back in and do another one in a lot shorter, you know.
I read where you described the album as being close to being the type of album you've wanted to make than any other you've done in the past. Was there a specific defining moment when you felt you began to get that special feeling about this record?
Look, sometimes I'd think it, and then 6 hours later I'd think exactly the opposite. So I was sort of playing in my head a bit. It wasn't until I finished the last mix where I actually had this sense of, that's what I wanted to do, and it was quite a strange feeling. It was good. I don't think that there is one right way of doing a song or a record. So it wasn't so much that. It was just, I think I was in a good space to be making good decisions. Again, there's no one, there's not one decision that is the right one. There's a whole bunch of them that are good. But how I edited the words, how I sang them, how I laid up the process, the engineer that I worked with, the gear that we used, the places that we went to, the musicians who I chose to play on it, I thought were all the right decisions. So, and in listening back to the record, I think, I'm really happy with it. Maybe the only thing that I would do differently is I've since finished the record, given up smoking, which is something that's kind of long overdue. And it's kind of actually it's not as different as all that, but yeah, I wouldn't mind. I'm looking forward to doing a record not smoking.
A non-smoker's album.
Yeah, that is a good title.
Yeah. You described it as an 18-month labour of love. Did the time involved in the creative process have something to do with the satisfying nature of the end result? Do you think you would have been as satisfied had you expedited the whole process?
Yes, I actually think it took longer than it needed to, but that was partly because it was like the first Terralga period was 3 weeks, and then there was 2 months in the studio here, then there was a month over in Rotorua, and then there was another 3 months at the end. So they didn't run concurrently. So, but the time in between was spent listening and thinking and yeah. No, I think that process was good. I did start wavering a little bit in the back half of it. I could have actually finished it about 4 months earlier if I'd kind of got my shit together, but I kept putting off some things out of fear, probably more than anything else. But so I think having done it now, I think I would be a bit more confident going into the next one. And it just seems silly that after all these years and all these records that I've done that I was feeling that way, but that's how it works. So.
It was a well-travelled creative process from New South Wales, New Zealand, Melbourne, San Francisco. It sounds like you really knew what you wanted and you were prepared to go to great lengths to get it.
Yeah, look, going to the farmhouse in Terralga near Goulburn was the perfect place to go for the writing and sketches at the beginning. Just me and the engineer, and it's a beautiful house, and it was a house I'm really comfortable with because I did Frank Yama's record there as well. So it's one of those places that your shoulders drop as soon as you walk in the front gate. Going over to Rotorua in New Zealand, going to New Zealand is just like flying to Brisbane. It's not from Melbourne. It's not far. And Michael Barker was, is one of the best drummers I've played with throughout my time, and a good friend. So that was great to go to his studio over there, beautifully situated on the banks of Rotorua. And Ryan doing the mixing in San Francisco made sense because he's a great engineer and mixer and someone who I really respect. So they're all, I think all the choices played out well. So,
Is there a story behind Wake being used as the title of the album?
I think probably the things that I've talked about in this interview already about wanting to creatively emerge again, but it also applies to Australia in some ways. I'm just, read an article from that's just been on about the 4 people who died yesterday. The John Stanhope, the Christmas Island administrator, said, Australians need to start seeing these people as individual human beings and not some anonymous group. And I think Australians are quite warm-hearted and egalitarian, but what's been going on at Manus Island or at Christmas Island, or what goes on in West Papua, 120 kilometres from our shore, is quite abhorrent. And we're a better people than this. We're a better country than this. And other other groups of people over history have been condemned for not seeing what was going on, for not standing up, for not making noise about what was going on until later, whether it be around the time of slavery or whether it be, Germany in the 1930s or, the whole white Western world in the 1960s. And Australia's at that point now, I think. And look, I'm not, and I'm, and so Wake seem to fit those titles, but it's also, like it's a personal thing too. So, but I also like the look of the word. I like the way that the W and the K fit together. It's quite graphically strong. But whether it be a piss up at a funeral or the bilge muck that sits behind a boat, in the wake of something, or opening your eyes and your mind, and it works in all of those. So.
I read where you said you needed not to be distracted and you needed to really lose yourself in the whole process of making this record. Has distraction been a major issue for you in the past?
Oh, yeah, look, it still is, yeah. Just because, there's all of us have distractions in our life. I think the older we get, the more that is, whether it be with whatever, your house, your family. But for me, work-wise, anyone that works for themselves, you can't actually control the workflow. And I've taken on this One Talk label is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it's something I really care about. So it's not. So when issues arise, you have to deal with them, even if you're in the middle of a tour or if you're in the middle of a recording session. But I was doing too many other people's projects and not spending enough time on my own projects. I thought my last solo record suffered a little bit because of that. And I was a little bit dissatisfied at the end, even though I think there's some great stuff on Succumb. I wasn't in the right mental space to make it. So I made a concerted effort with this and I think everybody who's making anything, film, a book, TV program, record, you need to do that. So that was part of it for me.
It's a terrific roll call of musicians and singers on the album. Did you go in there with a wish list of who you wanted for specific roles?
The only one that was different was obviously Chrissy Amphlett for singing Old Lovers, but which didn't happen for obvious reasons. But all the other people, that was that was the perfect wish list. Yeah.
In the end, Rob Snarsky took on the role that you had designated for Chrissy. Mm-hmm. Two very different types of singers. How much did bringing in Rob change your initial plan for that song?
There was a couple of things that changed that song. Michael Barker's, it was initially quite just this beautiful, simple piano song, but Michael played this. He's got a whole room full of junk percussion that he played on it, so he gave it a real lift there. But yes, if Chrissy had sung it, it would have been very different from Rob singing it. But Rob's got such a wonderful voice.
Yeah.
It's I'm very happy with it. Our voices actually blend quite well together, so that was good. And it was actually good too because most of the backing vocals on the record are women's voices, and which I think Marita Dyson and Rebecca Cosby-Boom and Kylie Aldist and Stella, my daughter, who sing on different songs, so that works really, really well. But to have Rob just textually just gave a bit of a point of difference.
He's a singer's singer, isn't he?
Oh yeah. No. Look, in any other country of the world, Rob Snarsky on his own is an indictment on the Australian music industry, because he should be, he should be living in a grand house on the top of a big hill.
Yep.
With French polished furniture everywhere, singing his heart out because he is just gold.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Long-time friends and colleagues, Helen Mountford, John Phillips on the record as well. That must have been a great source of comfort to be able to fall back on old colleagues like that.
Yeah, look, Helen's role in this was quite minimal, but what's great about Helen is she really cares. She comes through. I actually thought that on the night when she came around and played the cello parts for Treason and Dr. Zeus, it was like... we've done so much work together with the Cake and with film soundtracks and other projects. And she's such a great player that she could have just come in, not even thought about it, just put something down and it would have worked. But she had a really well thought out part for both those tracks and really listened to them and really cared. She could have also, as would be a natural human reaction, thinking, well, the better David solo record is, the worse off Chocolate Cake will be. But I think both Helen and I have a really good attitude to each other's other projects and wish them all the best. She's a really top class person, so that meant a lot to me. But playing with Johnny, both on the record and now in the live band, that means the world to me, because John and I were as thick as thieves musically from the very first, the first two Not Joning Waving records were ostensibly just John and I. And then we did all the first 10 years of film soundtrack stuff that I did. It was me and John. We had a studio together, and it was a great musical and personal relationship. And then John went over to live in France with his wife, and they were there for 10 years. And since he came back, we sort of, as people do, gone different ways. So for him to, he's such a phenomenal guitarist. He really is underrated, except by those who have listened to him, who would rate him as probably one of the greatest Australian guitarists. And but to have him on the tour is fantastic. We did a gig in Gold Coast on Sunday, and it was kind of a very it was a good hour. We did it. It was like 5 o'clock till 7:30 or something. We went and had a dinner afterwards and a couple of glasses of wine. And I was just sitting there thinking, I was just really enjoying his company, and as well as sometimes on stage, I just sit there and kind of gawk at him like a fan. So that means the world to me.
Yeah. Something out of left field, a Hank Williams cover on the album. Not something we'd expect to hear on a David Bridie record. How did that come together?
I like occasional cover, odd take on it. Not Drowning Waving did a cover of Canned Heat's Going Up the Country, which is very different from what the original was. Chocolate Cake did a cover of Danny Boy, and Song from Under the Floorboards, which were kind of left of centre. I think it's a beautiful song. I think it's a really beautiful lyric. It came about from a closing festival night where you had to do a few songs, and I was in Tasmania, and I was staying with Anthony Morgan, the comedian, and Frank Yammer was also playing at the festival, and the three of us got up and did a version of it. Just slowed it right down and made it really spacious, and but Phil Wales, my guitarist, he was the one who suggested that I do it, so he should get the credit for that. But really happy to have done it. It was a good way to close the record.
Oh, it's a fantastic result, yeah. Another recent soundtrack for you as well, Satellite Boy. Is recording and writing a soundtrack a whole different working process for you?
Yeah. It's it's a very collaborative process, which I like, in the sense that you're working with the director and the scriptwriter and the actors and the editor and the producer and a big team. It's in some ways less disciplined and in other ways more disciplined than making your own record. But when a film looks as beautiful as Satellite Boy does, but also has the landscape as a character. It's great for composing music too. When a film soundtrack, when the relationship between the director and the composer is strong, and when I really believe in the film, it's a great job. It's wonderful, but it's not always like that, and it can be difficult if it's not. But yeah, most of the film scores I've done over the year, and I've done a few, have been good processes and projects that I've really believed in. It's a good way of using music, and often you get to work with some musicians who you hadn't worked with before, who you might end up working with on your own record later. So that's that's the way that goes.
So is this record rekindled or reignited your love of songwriting, reconnected with the songwriter within rather than the composer?
Yeah. Look, I think I sort of got back into it, enjoyed it, and as I said, I wasn't sure whether I even cared to do it anymore. But I certainly do now, and I look forward to writing some more.
And in a live situation, have you noticed any changes in the songs, playing them in a live situation?
Yeah, they all develop live. They all kind of, I mean, Delegate kicks as I always knew it would from the first time I played it recording. But a song like Stoned in Kabul that has that dynamic to it, like it's quite spacious in bits and quite wall of sound in others. That comes alive. Black Islands is a cracking song to play live because it's just got such a groove. But a live gig is louder than what a record is for a start. But it's also you haven't got all the parts there, but you've got musicians playing off each other. So those elements are always different from making a record. It's less precise, but more the emotional kick is stronger. So I've been really enjoying playing the songs live, and they are working. Yeah.
Delegate sounds like you're having a lot of fun singing it. There's something different in your voice there. I can't quite put my finger on there, but
whiskey.
Sorry?
Whiskey.
Is that what it is?
Well, it is that. That's how I got to sing it. That's how the backing vocal works, because it's so high I actually can't sing it. Eden can hit that note, but I can't. It was. It was just. I think Succumb's got that kind of vocal style on it.
Yeah.
Where instead of I normally sing quite softly into the microphone, but that was like, it belts, and so it's a different tone in the voice.
There's a bit of venom there.
No, kind of works in that way for sure.
And just before I let you go, what's ahead in the promotion trail for this record?
Also, we've got the big gigs in Melbourne and Sydney in the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then there's a few other shows around Melbourne and Tasmania. I'm doing a job up in Alice Springs, the Mabuntua Festival in September, but I'll play Alice Springs and Darwin and Broome whilst I'm up there. And then when we get back, it'll be lots of festivals. And I'm going to keep working around, and we'll concentrate on the overseas stuff for next year. So You'll Know Flowers. We've got a film clip for Shortest Day of the Year that we haven't released yet that was done by Katrina, who did Satellite Boy.
Perfect.
So that we didn't actually get it done. It's being done in Los Angeles by the Game of Thrones editor, no less, with including a guest appearance by this wonderful actor who was in all of Jean-Claude Van Damme's movies. So I'm pretty chuffed about that.
Wow.
And what was the other thing I heard that was kind of weird yesterday? Oh yeah, the guy who does my who did the photography for the album is running for the Australian Sex Party in the next election. I thought that was a pretty good story as well. He's a fantastic photographer. But yeah, so that's we're just going to keep working on the record. But there'll be other little projects that come up here and there.
Fantastic. Hey, David, great to catch up with you again. It's a fantastic piece of work, and congratulations on it. And best of luck with the rest of the tour.
Thank you very much.
Good on you. Thanks again, David.
Bye.
All the best. Cheers.